Hi, this is Peter Sage, and the training you're about to watch is a recording of a live webinar that we put out that was designed to help empower people based upon what's going on with the corona crisis. There's going to be some very empowering information in there. Some of it may challenge your belief systems. Some of it may be completely liberating for you. I'm going to encourage you to have an open mind, sit back and enjoy the training. There's also a Q&A at the end along with some gifts that I want to give to everybody, so please stay and watch till the end. I promise you it'll be worth it. If it resonates, share it with your friends, and together I'm sure we'll be able to empower each other through this time where so many people are craving examples of leadership and certainty. Enjoy. Well, hello and welcome. This is Peter Sage, and great to see so many of you on the training today called the Corona Protection Training. But I don't actually like that name. I was looking at that. It really should be called the Corona Empowerment Training, because that's really what I'm trying to do here. Show you how to keep your family happy, healthy, safe, and more importantly, sane, especially in a world that seems to be getting more insane by the day. So, I want you to keep an open mind here, because some of the information that's going out and some of the information I'm going to share with you can be a little polarizing for some people. So before we begin, I just want to remind you that the job of the mind is always to justify your current emotional state. In other words, if you're tired and you wake up, it'll find an excuse for you to press the snooze button if there's one available. If you're angry at something, it'll find the perfect reason to justify why you should be right or why you shouldn't apologize. So the mind's job is to keep us in alignment with our own sense of belief. So if you're bought into a certain model of the world as to why you should be scared and why this is a pandemic that you want to be taking all these incredible precautions with, etc., then just be mindful that your mind is going to justify your own model of the world. It's just what it's set up to do. It's not right or wrong, but please have an open mind for what I'm about to share with you, because it could be so transformative. As you'll see as we move through this training, it is going to be imperative for you to be able to have a happy, healthy, safe, and sane environment if you're open to what I'm about to share. So what are we going to cover? Well, what are we protecting ourselves actually from? Well, there's two things. Two very clear things. One is something called a coronavirus called COVID-19. Yes, it is an actual virus. It exists, contrary to some conspiracy theories. And the other thing we're actually going to be protecting ourselves from, more importantly, in my opinion, is this. The insidious virus called fear and panic. Now, I don't call it insidious because I'm trying to overhype this. I'm actually quoting from the Singapore government right now, who quite, I believe, rightly recognize the fact that this panic and fear is far more prevalent and deadly, as we'll get into as we move on. So, okay, let's have a look, because I want to address both of these. And my goal at the end of this training, guys, is, again, for you to just be a lot calmer and have some real empowerment to be able to make better decisions with. So, what are we not going to be covering today? I'll be very honest with you. We are not going to be pretending that there isn't a problem. Though, as you'll see, the problem in your head is likely bigger than the one on the ground. And I don't just say that as a projection. You'll see crystal clear as we move forward here. I'm not going to be telling you to be irresponsible. I'm not going to be saying that there isn't a threat. As I said, I'm not going to be saying don't wash your hands or don't take precautions or don't go and be afraid of hugging somebody if you feel that you shouldn't. All of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to ask you to believe a word I say. That is a critical point. One of my mentors, Tom Campbell, is very emphatic when he states, if it's not your experience, it's not your truth. And I'm not here to project my model of the world onto you guys. I'm here to share with you some things that I feel quite strongly about, as you probably see. But your job is to not believe anything that I tell you. It is to go and do your own research, go and draw your own conclusions, and go and find out what your truth is for you. Case closed. I've got no right whatsoever to tell you what to believe. Now, I'm not going to ask you to buy anything. This is not a pitch. Some people say, oh, you're using the coronavirus to try and capitalize. No. In fact, I've got a huge amount of resources that I actually want to give you. If you stay till the end here, guys, I'm going to share with you thousands of pounds worth of resources that I've put together specifically because I want to help you. All right. So what will we be covering? Pretty simple. Well, going to understand the facts about how you receive the facts, because most people right now are swimming in misinformation. They are starving for truth, and they are drowning in falsehood. We're going to be covering immunity, big subject, especially in today's climate. We're going to talk about how you can improve it, what damages it, and what steps you can take immediately to start making yourself even more immune. We're going to talk about the whole facts around disease and germs. We're going to talk about the biology of fear and its impact on the brain and the immune system. And again, what you can do mentally, physically, nutritionally, and environmentally to be able to support that. We're going to be talking about how you can take advantage of the situation. Now, I don't mean in a mercenary way where you're running around price gouging like some supermarkets or mask suppliers are. Not that anybody's really upset about supermarkets being one of the only businesses in the places that are shut down that are taking advantage of this. But no, how do you actually take advantage? Because make no mistake, when this thing is over, there will be winners and there will be losers. And I'm trying to set that up in terms of the winning at the expense of somebody else. That is not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about personal empowerment here and how you can take advantage of this situation, and it will be a choice, as you'll see as we move forward. Okay. And I'm going to touch a little bit on some of the conspiracy stuff that's floating around right now, and because I've been asked to, and the predominant issue around that, guys, is that, I'll give you a spoiler alert. I don't waste time on conspiracy theories because A, you'll never really know, so what's the point in putting energy into something? Big thing to remember, I wrote this on the first page of the Inside Track. If you bring energy to something, you energize it, as we can see right now with the fear and panic. If you bring neutrality to something, you neutralize it. Okay, and I'm going to be sharing with you what the best thing you can do for your family is, because there's some very specific things, and one very specific thing I'm going to be sharing here, because at the end of this, you should really have the tools, the certainty, and the steps to be empowered by this crisis, not disempowered by it. That's the kind of promise I want to share with you here. And then we're going to finish with some questions and answers that I'm going to be spending some time going through, so you can all have a chance to get your questions answered. Now, I don't have all of the answers, and I only have my answers. Again, I don't have the answers, so just be mindful of that. Going back to, don't believe a word that I say, but if I can save you some time and point you in some directions, then great. In fact, I said, I'm not here to sell you anything. I'm actually going to be recommending you actually go and buy some other stuff or other people's books to, essentially educate yourself a little more in an empowering way. So let's get started. First of all, the facts about how you get the facts. Right now, 95% of the information that people are sucking in like a vacuum cleaner is from mainstream media. And then the other 5% is really from social media, which is essentially the mainstream media's interpretation of that information they're putting out, absorbed by people, and then re-blasting it across social media with their own views and thoughts and misinformation and their own lenses and projections. So one thing you have to understand, the media's primary agenda is not to tell the truth or to put your health as its highest priority, right? If you think that, I'm telling you, you're in Disneyland. I've put videos out for years over what the mainstream media's business model is, and it's very simple. I can sum it up in 2 words: eyes on. In other words, their primary filter is to get you to watch their content. That's how they justify viewing statistics, to benchmark rate cards, to bring in all of this commercial model. They're not a charity. They're not giving this away. So the mainstream media is a very competitive marketplace. And, even things like the BBC, which is funded by taxpayers' money, if the chairman of the BBC loses ratings, they lose their job. So the agenda here is not about putting your interests first. And when you understand that people are programmed for certainty, we are addicted to certainty, and the media's job is to induce uncertainty. Why? Because that will bring you back to the media to try to restore that level of certainty. The media right now is enjoying the highest view rates in history. The BBC have got millions of extra page views a day. CNN, millions of extra page views per day. Why? Because people are craving certainty right now. And the way that they are able to cherry pick or take on all of the information they have access to, filter it through the primary agenda, and use the time-tested traditional way of distorting context in order to represent the content that serves their agenda. We're going to drill down into this in a second. Right? In fact, I'm going to give you a crystal clear example. Here's one. Let's jump straight to it. Death rates. The death rates are how they induce the most uncertainty, because that's what people, how many people are dying of this? Could I die with this? Why? Because you lose your job, it's upsetting, go get another job. Your wife divorces you, then yeah, you could probably be depressed for a while, but go get remarried. But somebody turns around and says, hey, you've got stage 4 cancer, boom, it hits you at a different place. So mortality, because most people haven't reconciled the fact that death isn't the opposite of life, it's simply the opposite of birth, right? Well, whatever your belief system, because that's so open and people can't come to terms with it, it hits the amygdala so fast that it prioritizes your attention towards it. The amygdala is a part of the brain that essentially is evolutionarily designed to notice negative before positive, and it's what they are spending millions of dollars trying to hit, crafting headlines to be able to trigger, until this coronavirus comes along and does it for them. Absolute goldmine. And trust me, they are not willing to give that up anytime soon, as I'll demonstrate. Now, I flashed up a book here, which is a great book, which again, I recommend you go have a look at. It's called How to Lie with Statistics by Daryl Huff. When you understand what the media do routinely, day in, day out, to support their primary agenda, you will never be hoodwinked, or far less likely to be hoodwinked again. And Daryl gives some really good guidelines, which I'm just going to run through here. Some questions you want to ask yourself. So always ask, who said so? Because most of the people that are actually giving information are just not qualified to give information. The difference between what I'm sharing with you here is I'm telling you, don't believe me, go do some research. But if you're researching, ask, who said so? Because I'm telling you right now, if you said, oh, CNN, constant negative news, then I don't give that any credibility. If you say, oh, the BBC, I don't give it credibility. Why? Because they have a different agenda. How much do they know? And are they qualified? Again, ties in with the first one. How much do they actually know? Or are they making assumption? Because the vast majority of people are making the intellectually dumb mistake here, guys, of confusing popularity for truth. I said that in one of my previous videos, right? Or they're also confusing method of delivery for authority, which the media, trust me, is not an authority. It is a medium of information with a commercial-based agenda. What do they want you to know? Ask that. Again, ties back to what's their agenda. Let me give you some latest information right now. Did you know that China's actually closed down its last coronavirus-only hospital because it hasn't got enough new cases to support them? Do you know Apple's reopened all of its 42 stores in China? South Korea's number of new cases is declining. They're not going to put that on the front page. That doesn't support their agenda, right? No. They're going to milk this thing for everything they can because it's an absolute goldmine for them. They're, highest ratings in history. Are they manipulating the criteria? Again, this is a historic point. I'll bring up a couple of things here, guys, because again, it's important to understand the bigger game. Let's take AIDS. In the late 80s, early 90s, when AIDS was the big pandemic that was going to sweep the world and kill half of humanity, what happened was if you were diagnosed with a virus known as HIV, which is a retrovirus, not a coronavirus, then what would happen is you would be put into a certain category. So let's say you were dying of pneumonia and you were tested for HIV and you didn't have HIV, but you just had pneumonia and you died, then you would die of pneumonia. But if you were tested for HIV and you had HIV and you were dying of pneumonia and you died of AIDS. So what would happen, there were 6 diseases, one of them being pneumonia. And then when the figures didn't pan out into the pandemic that they wanted and the funding started drying up and the interest started sort of waning because it wasn't this mass global panic, all of a sudden there was a massive new wave of AIDS cases. And so money started flowing again. Now, what had happened is they didn't have any new AIDS cases. They simply widened the criteria of what was being recorded as a death for AIDS. So instead of the 6 diseases in HIV, they now expanded it to 12, then 18, then over 20. You get the point. Look at chemotherapy. For a long time, many statistics that were used to justify chemotherapy were manipulated the following way. If you had cancer and you were given chemotherapy, which, by the way, is the only form of treatment that has not been put through the gold medical standard of the double-blind placebo-controlled studies. There are no double-blind controlled studies on chemotherapy. One of the reasons for that is because they couldn't find a placebo that would actually duplicate the horrendous side effects. But if you were to give them chemotherapy, and then in the next 5 years, now chemotherapy trashes the immune system, by the way, absolutely trashes it. It is a DNA chain terminator. And what'll happen is you're immune compromised, which means you're susceptible to lots of other illnesses. We'll get onto that in a moment. But if you die of something else within 5 years of having chemotherapy, they will use that as to record it as a statistic to prove that chemotherapy saved your life because you didn't die of cancer. You're starting to see how it's very easy to lie with statistics and manipulate data. One of the things you want to ask is, what's missing? Yeah, what data is missing? Now, let's take the death statistics that they're using right now. What is actually missing are the tens of thousands of people that have probably had the coronavirus, COVID-19, that shrugged it off, didn't realize, didn't even know, maybe had a mild sneeze or a cough, and went about their business. Just like most of the people that have recovered. So they're taking the people that have actually been recorded, which were the sick people to begin with, using the mortality rate there, and then if they die, they don't die of COVID-19, they die of a comorbid condition that were already existing or underlying, and then guess what? They were killed by the coronavirus. Are you getting my point, guys? Now, here's some stats that I put out on my YouTube channel, taken from UK Column, which is a great YouTube channel if you want to avoid some of the agenda of the mass media. They really want to try and focus on facts and strip away the eyes on. But this is taken from University of Washington's lab's own stats, and there was some analysis done that was exceptionally high level. It was intelligent, it was medically lauded, and it shows that the actual death rate of the virus, when you take into account the information I've shared with you, is far closer to being 0.007%. You get my point. So if you really want to start understanding where you're getting the facts from and asking better questions, just know that tuning into BBC and CNN is not the place to go right now. Now, lastly, and I've left this to last because this is a real killer point, how exactly are they measuring this? Now, guys, please stand by for some information that, again, please go do your own research here, but when I looked at this, it was literally head in your hand stuff, because you see how the dots start to join. The COVID-19, as you can see there, RT-PCR test. The only way they're able to test for COVID-19 right now is through the PCR test. It's also known as what's short for the polymerase chain reaction test. Now, please listen carefully. This is not a test that isolates, identifies, or even detects any particular virus. Yes, you heard me right. It does not test for COVID-19. It cannot test for COVID-19. If you're sick and you have some viral fragments, the PCR test amplifies and sequences those millions of times from the sample, and there is a ton of scientific literature out there that shows that any viral disease estimate from PCR is a theory at best. Now, if you do your homework, you'll know that identifying individual viruses from PCR is nothing more than a theory, and it can be triggered by many of the 500 coronaviruses out there. It is super prone to false positives. It is super speculative, and don't take my word for it. Even the guy who won the Nobel Prize for inventing this test back in the 80s, Dr. Kary Mullis, he called it a flawed theoretical estimate. I mean, really? Are you kidding me? That's what they're testing thousands of people on right now, and somebody's coming back with a positive because it's a best guess and could be triggered by a whole host of things, including the 500 coronaviruses, many of which live harmlessly in the system. Are you kidding me? Anyway, let me not get too passionate about this. But my point being here, guys, is that you understand that the data that you're being fed, which is triggering the fear response, question the facts. Okay, let's move on to immunity. When it comes to immunity, I wrote an article 20 years ago. Actually, looks up. I thought it was in the late 90s. It was actually January 2000 when I set up and ran the company, the Worldwide Health Corporation. And I wrote an article. I'll quote you from it. You have somewhere in the region of 70 to 100 trillion cells in your body. And your immune system will know if one of those cells doesn't belong there. Your immune system produces an array of weapons that would astound a brigadier general, and constantly adjusts and modifies its response to fit the precise characteristics of the enemy. Even in victory, your immune system never rests. Instead, it produces cells called antibodies that remember every foe it has ever fought, making it more effective in repelling a future attack. This explains why most of us only get chickenpox once in our lives. This is important because at any given moment, listen to me here, there are countless numbers of viruses, bacteria, and fungi trying to take up residence in your body. In fact, you have many times more amounts of bacteria and viruses in your body than you do cells. Yet you're a natural symbiont environment. But unfortunately, we have this germ theory that has been fed to us that says that, oh, germs cause illness. Right? Well, let me just address that for a second. Because Louis Pasteur, who most of you know from pasteurized milk, which he gave his name to for heating up milk so that it destroys germs, the germ theory of disease is what he put forward in 1850. It was disproven in 1914. Let me run through this with you. Pasteur versus Beecham, which was a bitter rivalry because Louis Pasteur said that germs cause disease and Beecham said that it didn't. On his deathbed, Louis Pasteur says, Bernard was correct. I was wrong. The microbe or the germ is nothing. The terrain is everything. Now, Bernard was Claude Bernard, who got that terrain theory from Beecham, who called it the cellular theory. Disproven in 1914, and the Nobel Prize nominee Rosenau published in the American Journal of Medicine back in 1914, where he documented and provided details of experiments in which he took bacteria, and by changing the temperature in the food in their environment, he was able to change them from benign to virulent microbes and back again, or the other way around. Now, conventional terms, guys, this would be the equivalent of changing cats into dogs and then back into cats again. And his experiments elegantly disprove the basis of the germ theory of disease. Now, listen to me, while disease germs can be created and infection can be transmitted, the host must provide a similarly toxic environment, meaning that they must have been already sick in some way for the virulent organisms to take hold and trigger the infection. Otherwise, the germs de-evolve and become harmless, are unable to provoke a D-state, just like the billions and trillions of bacteria and viruses inside you right now. See, the germ theory, for it to work, means that exposure means disease, and it just doesn't hold true. Now, if you have a look at that bottom bit there, it said disease was a condition of imbalance in the internal terrain. And if you look at the last point there, germs do not cause disease. Instead, they are a sign of the diseased conditions of the terrain, and they're not the cause of those conditions. Now, we disproved germ theory in 1914. You will say, well, that was a long time ago. Well, let's just take one of my favorite biologists right now, Bruce Lipton. Amazing guy, also consciousness researcher, forefront of what's going on in quantum physics and mechanics right now as well. Love Bruce to bits. I read Biology of Belief when it first came out back in the mid-2000s. It's been updated. Please grab a copy of it. And to quote Bruce, the cell is not the issue, it's the environment, stupid. In other words, it is the environment the body lives in. The environment that your body has is way more important than anything that can be introduced to it in a natural setting, including germs and viruses. All right, so let's just have a look at how that really stacks up. Let's go to what creates or influences the internal environment more than anything else. The power of the human thoughts on the body. Now, every thought you think produces a chemical that affects you physically in many ways, biochemically, neurologically, hormonally, and many more. So I'll give you an example. You're driving home from a party. You may have had one or two beers and you may think you're fine, maybe just on the limit, not quite sure, but you're okay and you're going to go home. Or maybe it's not you, maybe it's somebody you know. For those of you that said, I would never do that. So all of a sudden you're driving back and you see a blue light in the rearview mirror. What just happens to your heart rate? What just happens to your blood pressure? What just happens to your cortisol level? You know the answer. Right now, did the blue light do that? Did the blue light traveling at 186,282 miles a second bounce off that mirror, hit the optic nerve, slow down to 250 miles an hour, travel through the optic nerve into the brainstem, and then start wreaking havoc with your brain chemistry? No, that is not what happened. Your thoughts about the blue light is what caused all of that dramatic physical shift inside the body. Now, if that blue light then happens to overtake you and starts chasing somebody else, what happens? Again, it's not the blue light. My point here, guys, is that your thoughts impact your inner terrain constantly in massive ways. Let's take another book I'd like to recommend you here by the great Dr. Joe Dispenza, somebody who's doing incredible work right now in understanding the mind-body connection. Wrote one of the best books where he collated science, medical documentation, case studies into one incredible resource. Please go read the book if you want to empower yourself. You are the placebo. In fact, a few of the studies in there he shows done at the Mayo Clinic, Yale, and Duke University. These aren't backwater establishments. All showed that attitude had more of an influence on health and longevity than blood pressure, cholesterol levels, smoking, body weight, or levels of exercise. Attitude. Are you hearing me here? You see, you talk to a doctor about the will to live. Every doctor who works in, for example, oncology or palliative care, or they'll understand the will to live. Now, can you put that in a test tube? Can you measure that? Can you stick it in a centrifuge? No. The will to live is intangible. But the flip side to this, guys, is something called the nocebo, and it is massively destructive. And I'll give you a couple of examples. One simple one. You show up at work one day, if you're not in quarantine right now, and your friend turns around and says, hey, John, are you okay? You don't look too well. You're like, yeah, sure, I'm okay. I woke up feeling fine this morning. About 10 minutes later, one of your colleagues comes up and says, John, are you all right? You look really pale. You're like, oh, no, I'm okay. I feel great. I'm all right. Yeah, a bit of doubt starting to creep in. And then you walk into the canteen and somebody says, John, you should go home, mate. You look like shit. And you're like, you know something? Yeah, I'm starting to feel pretty bad, to be fair. Somebody else mentioned that. And all of a sudden, you start to manifest symptoms based upon your level of belief around other people's certainty about how you look or what environment you are in. Is this sounding familiar? See, in some states in America, they now ban doctors from giving death sentences. What I mean by death sentence, by telling you when you're going to die. You know, I've got a very powerful experience of this, guys, because, you know, my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer. I went with her to the hospital to meet the oncologist. And the oncologist, in a very almost nonchalant, blasé way, turned around when Mum says, oh, what can we do about it? So, oh, nothing, it's inoperable. You've got about 6 months to live. Now, I could have throttled that doctor. I mean, to be fair, she was only doing her job, right? But my mother grew up in an environment that prioritized the significance of doctors. You know, that the white coat level of authority was something that was far greater in my parents' generation than it is today, where people understand that doctors are essentially trained drug salespeople, even though they've got a great heart and they really want to serve, many of them. You know, I would never go to a doctor if I want to be healthy, for the simple reason that they've never studied health. They've studied illness. If I want to be ill, I'll go talk to a doctor. They know all about it. But, you know, doctors in today's world, unfortunately, do not practice healthcare. Healthcare is a misnomer. No, they practice disease management, and they only have certain tools to do it, which by law restrict them to little more than prescribing drugs and recommending surgery. So my mother took that on, and as much as I tried to shift it, as much as I tried to counter the belief, as much as I tried to help my mum, guess how long it was before she died? Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, don't anyone ever tell me that the nocebo isn't something that we want to be worried about. Okay, so if that is a real issue, let's look at what else fear does to the body. All right, let's look at the brain to start with. You see, we become very unintelligent when we're scared. And we know this because we've all said dumb stuff or done dumb stuff or in unintelligent stuff when we're either scared or angry or in a high fear, high cortisol state. And the reason for that is because literally the front part of the brain, the neocortex, which is responsible in the frontal lobe for executive intelligent-based decisions, shuts down. The blood is squeezed out of the front of the brain into the mid and rear brain so that we can work off reflex. And why? Because you don't want to stand there when you're about to have a fight and think, oh, let me use critical thinking. Is this person going to hit me with a left hook as it goes? No, bang, you're already hit. Yeah, you work off reflex. You talk to any MMA fighter, you talk to any martial artist. They have to get to a point where it is unconsciously competent. Yes, you need to have a fight IQ and stick to a game plan. But if you are stuck in your head rather than working off reflex, then you're on the back foot when it comes to being in a fight. Which is why, you have this herd mentality when there's panic. Let's all run to the supermarket. And it's why fear travels faster than information. Information is processed at the front of the brain. Fear triggers the amygdala and the rear brain. You hear me here, guys? Fear travels faster than information, which is why people will herd mentality, say, into the supermarket without actually thinking, well, hang on a minute, the only shops we're allowed to visit right now are the supermarket. So, oh no, quick, let's run and panic buy everything from the supermarket because we're still allowed to go to the supermarket. But it's not just the brain. The brain is one aspect which causes us to make stupid decisions, like believe what the media are telling us, for example. But the real challenge and the real thing you want to be mindful of here, guys, is this. The impact on immunity. When you are fearful, your immune system shuts down. Now, why is that a biological fact, and why is it useful in evolutionary terms and very destructive in modern day terms? It's because, remember what I said earlier about the article that I wrote quite a while back, where I talked about even in victory, your immune system never rests. Well, that's because when you don't have any threats on the outside, you've got trillions of bacteria and viral cells in your body at any one time. You've got millions of cancer cells in you right now, if you're 1,000% healthy. But they can't manifest and do any damage because your immune system is constantly keeping them in check. Because the threat, when it's not on the outside, the energy that your body has turns it to maintaining the threats and controlling the threats on the inside. Now here's the challenge. That takes a huge amount of energy. Your immune system, next to digestive system and brain function, is one of the biggest sources of energy taxation on the body. But if all of a sudden you're walking across the savannah, down the street, whatever it is, and a tiger jumps out in front of you, not that there's tigers on the savannah, but before you quote me there, but you get the point, you get an external threat. Or somebody jumps out from behind the bushes with a flick knife and wants to get your wallet. You immediately go into a fight or flight response, which, again, not only puts blood away from the front of the brain, but pumps it to the muscles. It squeezes it out from the organs and sends it to the extremities. Why? Because right now you need to act physically, right, on the outer world threat. And that draws all of the energy from the immune system, because the immune system can be fine for the next 10 minutes while you run away from the tiger or deal with the attacker. But guess what? If you are chronically stressed, your immune system will never really get back on its feet. If you are chronically in a state of fear or panic, and this is why we have the understanding that fear causes illness, because when your immune system drops, you have all of these bacteria and viruses that were living quite harmlessly in your body that science has a name for. And the name for those organisms is opportunistic organisms, because they are constantly looking for the opportunity to attack. And you've got all the soldiers on the gate, they can't get through. But if the soldiers get pulled down because you've got to fight an external threat, guess what? Gates open. So all of the information that the media are pushing right now, and see how this fits, guys. You have people that are being tested with a test that doesn't even test for the virus, that is renowned for giving false positives, that is a theory at best. And yours says, hey, guess what? I'm sorry, but you've tested positive for COVID-19. Oh my goodness, just like the person going to work. You look like shit today. All of a sudden, you now have fear and panic. Your immune system drops, and you now start being open to virals, colds, flus, all sorts of stuff that were existing inside you already, and now you start manifesting symptoms, and now, guess what? You become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's the problem that's going on right now, guys. And again, history will bear me out here. If I'm wrong and there is some pandemic, some virulent, wild germ that's flying around, infesting everybody, then great. I will stand corrected. But I think history will prove this out to be one of the biggest self-fulfilling prophecies, largely perpetuated by fear and media manipulation of data as we move forward. Again, this isn't to say there isn't a threat, but there's always a threat. Flu season at this point alone is killing millions and millions of people, all right, globally. In the US alone, in the 2019 to 2020 flu season, CDC's own figures are that 30 plus million people affected. Million! There are hundreds of thousands hospitalized, and there's about 25,000 dead. Hardly makes an inch column in the newspaper because we've been desensitized to it. That doesn't get eyes on, that doesn't serve the agenda, that doesn't get reported. You're starting to see where I'm going here. Okay, so let's draw a line under all of that, and let's start looking at how we can actually supercharge our own immune system, if that's the key to staying healthy as a fully functional and operating human being. And I want to cover a few things here, guys. We're going to be going into, as I said earlier, what we can do mentally, physically, nutritionally, and environmentally to be able to help ourselves. Let's start with mentally first. Now, the first thing that we want to do is stay calm. Now, that's very hard to do if you're plugged into a source of information whose job is the antithesis of that. They do not want calm people. They may say, oh, keep calm, everybody. Oh, by the way, death rate's 5%. Yeah, you get the point. So let's drill down on that a little bit, because one of the things I teach my students is being able to have self-mastery over their emotions. One of the first things to understand in this world, guys, as well, is that there is no certainty. Get over it. People's certainty blanket has been pulled, but guess what? It was only the illusion of certainty to begin with. There is none. And I'm asked a lot, what is the defining characteristic of an entrepreneur? It's the ability to handle uncertainty. If that was the one muscle I would encourage people to build, it would be that one, because your certainty blanket can be pulled at any time, right? As most people's already have through this particular press magnified crisis. Getting to a point of acceptance versus resistance and understanding the power in that is also a huge step up in your ability to cope with things like this. When I was in Pentonville, for those that know the story, I was the only non-criminal in Britain's toughest jail for 6 months. And I went in for 6 months on a contempt of court civil application, again, understanding the difference between content and context. But what I did is I was helping so many of the prisoners. I got a lot of them off drugs. I got a lot of them off antidepressants, stopping suicides. I document it all in the inside track. And one of the things that I was able to help people with was getting to the point of acceptance. You see, resistance to what is futile. If the milk is spilt, if you catch a germ, a microbe, if that's your belief system, then guess what? If you've got it, you've got it. If you're ill, you're ill. The second you accept that, you free up the energy of resistance and bitching and complaining and victimness and start being able to channel it into what is the next best move. Right? So coming to a place of acceptance is super high. Don't confuse it with apathy, resignation, or powerlessness. Acceptance is a powerful state to get to, because you're not putting your head in the sand and you're not being bullied by something because you're resisting it. Now you say, okay, if I've lost my business, I've lost my business. Okay, let's come to terms with that and let's move on. What's the best way to be able to move forward from this? Not like going to depression and alcoholism for the next 2 years because you've got a story you're trying to justify yourself not having courage to get over. And let's put a contrast frame here, guys. Contrast frames are always powerful. It's a great tool to use to be able to put perspective on things. For example, if you go to work one day and your boss calls you in and gives you a surprise 10% pay rise, you feel pretty good. But if you then sit down next to your colleague at lunchtime and they say, hey, guess what? I got called in. I got given a 15% pay rise. You're like, whoa, now you don't feel so good because you had nothing before, but now you only have 10%. So the trick with contrast frames is to always contrast it with something that'll empower you. A lot of people are contrasting this corona deal with, oh, but I go to work every day and now I can't. Oh, I've had to lay off staff. Oh, I've been put in my home. I can't walk my dogs, whatever it may be. And you're contrasting it to the life that you had. Well, get to a place of acceptance. It is what it is. But let's just put a contrast frame in here. If you were to gather your relatives around that were around in, let's say, World War I, or World War II, and you say, oh my God, there's this incredible crisis. It's sweeping the earth. Everyone's in panic mode. So, oh my God, what is it? What is it? So, it's kind of a flu. They're going to look at you like you're deluded. Right? If you go back to your ancestors right now and say, oh my God, this is this massive global panic. Everybody's scared. Yeah. Oh my God, is it like these marauders? Yeah, they're coming from the next village to murder, kill, and rape everybody. You're like, oh no, it's a sort of cough and cold, and you get ill for a couple of weeks, and then you pretty much recover. They're going to look at you as if you're on drugs, right? So the first thing is be able to get calm. How do you do that? Practice gratitude. Gratitude is one of the fastest emotions that people have access to, easy access to, because there's always something to be grateful for, that have a profound effect on the coherence of the brain and the heart waves together, which will restore the parasympathetic nervous system, which governs the integrity of the immune system. See, when you try to take over the reins yourself because you're scared and stressed, your immune system crashes. We discussed that. But the parasympathetic immune system, which is why you repair when you're asleep because your conscious mind's out of the way, can take over. But gratitude gets you back into that state. In fact, if you practice gratitude for 10 to 20 minutes a day, the studies that Joe Dispenza did show that in 7 days you can increase immunoglobulin A by up to 50%. And immunoglobulin A is a critical part of your immune system's health and strength. Right? Is this making sense, guys? I mean, I practice heart math. MATH, Heart Math, which is an app you can get on the phone and a biosensor you clip to your ear. And it's a great way of being able to use biofeedback to stay in a state of powerful coherence, which will improve your immune system. Great investment. Now, it also ties together with the physical side. What can we do physically? You see, physical exercise is critical. We're designed for it. We're not designed to sit on our ass and munch popcorn while we're watching Netflix all day. That is not what the human body is designed for. But nature operates a use it or lose it philosophy. So if you look at some books, for example, like the Real Happy Pill, it demonstrates the fact all of the different science behind why exercise stimulates neurochemistry in a way that supports immunity, it supports healthy organ function, it supports upregulation, it supports the body's anabolic state as opposed to catabolic state, which is sort of downregulating. And you don't need to do a huge amount. But trust me, if you don't make time for health, you will have to make time for illness. And you can really give yourself a boost by getting out there, and whether it's walking to work or taking the stairs instead of the elevator. Start off small if you're not used to it. But don't say, oh, my gym's closed, as mine is, and say, I can't train. No, train at home. In fact, here's an app that I'm going to recommend to you. It's called Tony's 8 Minutes. This is Tony Nicholson. Now, Tony is an incredible guy. He's a mentee of mine. I've been mentoring Tony for many years. In fact, he actually called me, and 2 hours before this training, we spent an hour on the phone. He's currently on his 3rd month in lockdown in China. 3 months, guys. Some of us are moaning that it's 2 weeks. Again, contrast frame. And this app, it's free, and it shows you how to do a decent workout in only 8 minutes. And also, you've got some energy exercises there with Qigong, and also some meditation exercise. It's a great little app. Tony's become an absolute superstar in China. So proud of him. He's also a film star now. Go follow him on Instagram. He's got about 500,000 followers, last count. And he stayed in China. He's one of the only Westerners that chose to stay in China because of this crisis. And he was there trying to help people. And CNN and the local news channel, the English-speaking one and the Chinese one, put out a little 3-minute clip on Tony, which he just called me to tell me 2 billion people have seen that. So proud of the guy. And again, it's having an ethnocentric focus, not like, oh, poor me, what can I do with the crisis? It's like, how do I help people? But yeah, working out on the physical side is a huge part of being able to take care of your immune system. So you've got no excuse there now. Do it in 8 minutes a day from the comfort of your own home with no equipment. Follow what Tony does. Big plug for Tony there. Okay, let's move on to nutrition. What can you do nutritionally? Well, there are 4 things that I would definitely recommend that you get and put in your cupboard if you haven't got them right now. The absolute first, and they've been treating severe cases of pneumonia with people that have been tested positive for COVID-19 in China and released them healthily. Go look at the studies in the hospitals of China. It's public information with vitamin C. Yes, good old vitamin C. Listen to me, guys. Vitamin C kills viruses. It doesn't annoy them. It doesn't upset them. It doesn't give them a bad hair day. It kills viruses. It kills them every time, all the time. And in the 1960s, there was case study after case study after case study that cured almost every viral type of infection you can have, from measles to smallpox to polio to influenza, with vitamin C on high doses. Now, what do you call a high dose? Again, I will disclaim this by saying, thankfully, I'm not a medical professional. I haven't studied illness, but I will give you my own personal views on what I do. On a daily basis, I, as an adult, will take 2,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day. And if I'm wanting to ramp up my immune system, then I'd be taking at least 4 to 5. I space it out in the day so that I don't get any sort of gastro issues or diarrhea, which can sometimes happen if people take too much. But that's fine. It's just the body's way of dealing with it. But I also don't take ascorbic acid, which is fine. If that's all you can get hold of, ascorbic acid is great. Everything's compared to what? Compared to taking nothing, ascorbic acid is brilliant. But for me personally, I take Camu Camu, I take Ester C, I take Acerola Cherry, and various other things you can all get in the health food stores now, no problem. I also take vitamin D3. D3 is a great and usually lacking and deficient nutrient helps with the immune system, helps with a lot of different function. I take iodine. Iodine, most people are chronically deficient in iodine, and a classic cause of thyroid dysfunction, for those of you that have thyroid issues or weight problems caused by thyroid issues, is usually because the body has a lack of iodine. I take Lugol's formula, And I also take magnesium if there's one of the cheapest, most beneficial minerals that you can take to restore body levels, because most people are chronically short of magnesium, which again will compromise the immune system and the overall integrity of the body. Then magnesium is it. In fact, I went and grabbed a few things out of my own cupboard here. Here's a quick picture for you guys. As you can see, vitamin D3 there, good old Costco. Magnesium capsules there. You'll see I've got some organic camu powder and the Lugol's iodine, and those are the two I'll talk about in a moment. They're essential oils. Now, if you have a look at the magnesium and the Lugol's, you'll see that I buy these from a gentleman who's a dear friend of mine. His name is Clive DeCarl. Clive is one of the most knowledgeable natural health guys that I know. He's the guy I turn to when it comes to asking about supplements or addressing different conditions. The guy, I've seen him literally treat and cure so many different people, although you can't use the C word unless it's a drug. But he's amazing. And the reason I trust Clive is because he has such a high level of integrity around the level of supplements he gets. Whereas if you go to places like GNC or Holland & Barrett or even Costco to an extent, you've got mass-produced supplements which usually shortcut to make profitability higher than integrity of quality, if that makes sense. So, Clive produces an entire range. I'm not here to plug him. I'm just saying what I do. But if you do want that, clivedecarl.com, go grab it from Clive, because I love the guy. I'm getting nothing out of that. I just want to support him because what he's doing is amazing. And follow him on YouTube as well. He's a great guy, good friend. Okay, let's talk about what we can do environmentally. Now, that's one of the reasons, by the way, if we just pop back, you saw those two essential oils on the right. One of the things that you can do environmentally is use essential oils. Get an oil diffuser or an oil burner. And a very interesting fun fact for you here. During the World War I, there were field hospitals. The Germans had field hospitals, the French had field hospitals, and obviously the British had field hospitals. And they noticed that the mortality rate in the French hospitals was actually lower. Now, the difference was they put that down to the French were big users of essential oils, and they would waft essential oils through their field hospitals. Essential oils, again, kill viruses. They support the body's immune system. It's a cheap and easy way to help your environment. Then we have, the standard stuff you can do, washing your hands on a regular basis. Now, I saw some very compelling information from a gentleman I'm going to introduce you to a little bit later, Dr. John Bergman, who essentially says if you're rubbing your hands together with sanitizer, like the Purells of the world and the alcohol-based stuff, for a start, the FDA's own figures or information states that you need to rub your hands together with that for over 4 minutes if you're to kill a virus on the hands. The problem is, A, nobody does that, and B, the other thing is that if you're rubbing your hands together for a long period of time with levels of alcohol or the hand sanitizer, A, you're killing a lot of the friendly bacteria that exist that can harmonize and synergize and symbiotically manage the ecosystem of the body. It's also putting a lot of toxic substances into the body. The body absorbs, or the skin absorbs, up to a third of what you put on it. So therefore, it's causing, if you talk to the doctors or look at the doctors in China that were washing their hands or hand sanitizing on a regular basis, they were getting rashes as a result of using the hand sanitizer. Now again, I'm not here to scaremonger or fear or panic, but if you're using a good quality soap, it's just as good. So for me, I'm using soap. I'm not using things like Purell. Obviously, you can wear masks. Masks are very useful. This is kind of a large virus. So the nanometer size of this virus means that most masks can actually filter it. But masks usually serve two predominant, in my mind, benefits. One is the fact if you have the disease, it will help you from coughing it out over other people. All right? The other thing is that if you're walking down the street and you're wearing a mask and you see other people wearing a mask, it does give people a higher degree of certainty that they won't catch it. And go back to the placebo effect, go back to your thoughts, create your inner environment. That alone is one of the great reasons to wear masks. Right? Okay, let's have a little touch on something else here. Conspiracy theories. My goodness, there's a few of those floating around. A lot of people ask me to go on this, but I'm going to touch on just a couple that are flying here just to bring them up so you don't get sidetracked too much, but share with you some information, and then I'm going to share with you why I brought this up. One is the whole 5G issue right now. Obviously, the province in China, the town in China, city in China that Corona first broke out in was the first city in China to actually have 5G put out. And the science behind that the proponents are putting out is the fact that at 60 gigahertz, which is what 5G essentially does, or go out at, that's the one frequency where oxygen absorbs 98% of the energy, and it messes with the molecular structure or the electron integrity of that, and as a result, you've seen people on TV falling down with no apparent symptoms. That doesn't happen with a virus. It does happen with oxygen deficiency. So they are saying that 5G is probably what's causing a lot of the symptoms of people falling down that were being blamed on corona. The other one is this. Is Wall Street behind the declaring the pandemic? Well, I'll let you freeze this and read it for yourself. But essentially what it says here is the World Bank put together a specialized bond a few years ago for a pandemic emergency financing facility. And if those bonds are due to mature on July the 15th, 2020, which means that if a pandemic didn't occur before this July, then they'd have to pay all of their investors their money back. So anyway, and this is brought up to me, this information comes from the gentleman I mentioned earlier, Dr. John Bergman. Now, I'm a big fan of this guy. I was introduced to him by Clive DeCarl. Subscribe to his YouTube channel. You can join the nearly 750,000 people that have. He talks a lot of sense. I've got a lot of respect for the guy. His content is outstanding. Again, stop binging on Netflix, turn off the media, go listen to someone like Dr. John. And I've got a great amount of respect for him. But here's the thing, guys. When it comes back to conspiracy theories, don't give them much thought at all. Don't give them any energy for it, in fact, because here's the thing, as I said earlier, you'll never really know. So if you never really know, what's the point in putting your energy into something that really isn't going to affect you, whether it's true or whether it isn't? Deal with being the star of your own movie here, which kind of brings me on to my next point, which is, what is the best thing that you can do for your family? That is one of the things that I really want to get across here, because this is really where it comes down to you personally. What is the action steps that you can do? What is the mindset that you want to be able to have? And really it comes down for me, guys, to one thing. There is one specific thing that you can do that will be the best thing that you can do for your family. And that is this. Be the example, not the warning. What do I mean by that? You have probably an unprecedented opportunity in human history right now that has never been here before, that may never come again, we don't know, to basically step up and show your family who you can become in a time of crisis. Right? Are you going to cave in and flock with the masses at 90 miles an hour to nowhere? Or are you going to be the calm in the storm? Are you going to be the example where they look to you and say, oh my God, wow, look at dad. Yeah, that's what I want to look up to. Or look at mom. That's the kind of person that I want to become. And what does that look like? I want to give you a personal example here. A good friend of mine, Marius, ex-business partner, called me a few months ago and says, Peter, I'm really worried. I'm not sleeping. I've got a lump in my chest. I went to the doctor. They think it might be cancer. Again, you want to see where certainty gets threatened the most, personal health. So he said, I'm scared. I'm like, well, what are you most scared of? He says, I'm scared that I'll leave my boys without a father. He's got two beautiful boys. I've spent time with Marius in Poland. He lives in Krakow. And he's a beautiful soul. He's younger than me. He's in his mid-40s. And he was just beside himself. I'm like, Marius, you need to understand something, right? You have an opportunity here, like I just shared with you guys, to be an incredible example. I says, let me ask you a question. At some point, are you going to leave your boys? Let's put it on the table. At some point, are you going to die? And do you want it to be before or after your kids? Because it's every parent's wish that their children outlive them. And of course, he says, it's going to happen at some point. I just don't want it to be now. I said, understood, but at some point it's going to happen. Let's just say, for whatever reason, let's just say it's 10, 20 years from now, 50 years from now, it doesn't matter. Let's just say once you're gone, your boys, let's say they've got married and let's say they get into a messy divorce. It happens. And at that point, they're going to say, what would dad do? Because is there anything that you can do at that point to help them? No. What you can help them with is the example that you were when you faced adversity. Because as every parent knows, kids are not going to do what you tell them to do. They're going to do what you do. Right? If you smoke 50 cigarettes a day and you tell your kids, never smoke, forget it. They're going to light up. You're the example for them. That's how it works. The whole do as I say, not as I do. It doesn't work that way. So I said to Marius, look, at that particular point, they're going to turn around and say, hey, do you remember that time when dad thought he had cancer? How was it? He was calm. He was peaceful. He was like, don't worry, kids, we'll get through this no matter what happens. You can't control what you can't control in life, but here's what I know. Whatever it is, we'll be together, we'll beat this thing, and we'll make it work. I trust in something bigger than me, and I've got you guys, and you've got me. Let's do this together. That's the example you want them to be able to refer to at some point after you've gone, when they face their own crises, when they don't have a dad. What you guys have got right now is an incredible example. of being able to step up and be the person who turns off the news, that asks the right questions, that doesn't follow the herd mentality, that people can, your kids, your friends, your community looks to and says, wow, now that's what I want, because that's the real opportunity here for everybody, guys. When I was in Pentonville, I would often sit on the bed and I would meditate and I would visualize sending energy to every single inmate in the jail. I would focus on whether I knew if it was making a difference or not, it didn't matter. But I knew that if I was able to raise my energy and send it out, it would have a calming effect on the people around me. That was my intention. Anyway, I didn't realize the effect until after I left. And it was after I'd been released, my ex-cellmate came up to join me. And he essentially said, Pete, did you hear what happened when you left? I'm like, no, what do you mean? He says, well, you left at 7 a.m. By 8 o'clock, the entire wing kicked off. I'm like, what do you mean kicked off? And he said, well, no. The violence, the anger, the energy, it just all came out of nowhere. And he says, until 3 weeks later when he left, he says it didn't go down. Now, again, I'm not saying that's anecdotal, because there are some incredible studies in New York that were done where you have group meditations that were focused on reducing crime rate. And the famous quote from the chief of police in New York that says, when they said we want to reduce crime rate by 10%, he said, listen, to be able to do that, you'd need 3 foot of snow falling on New York. And of course, what happened? They did the study, they did the meditation, group mass meditation, crime fell through the floor. Again, go do your own research. So if you can become the voice of reason, the calmness, if you can work on self-mastery, becoming your own sense of lighthouse and truth for yourself, rather than running around like a headless sheep, trying to fit the pictures of everybody else's agendas, then there's so much that's available. I'm just going to share a couple of things here from some students just to show you what's on off here, because I'm so proud of these guys. Now, this is two messages I've got very recently. One was from Eli. Now, Eli's running a travel company, right? I mean, let's look at this. Pete, hi, hope you're doing great. Man, I just want to reach out and say it's amazing running a tour company amidst coronavirus. Thank you for all of the shared wisdom and opportunities to grow through events like this instead of being rattled by them. Finding the seeds of opportunity in a time of adversity like this has been amazing and empowering. I go back to the talks you gave about 9/11 at the Tony Robbins event, and of course my experiences in Pentonville, egregores and all. Being able to step out of that pendulum is bringing even more energy than I would have had to start. What a great opportunity to move forward while others are retracting, and to be an example of how to lead in a time of uncertainty. All the best from El Capitan. That's the kind of person you want to be right now for everybody who's panicking in this environment. And again, I didn't ask Eli for that. He sent it through. I was so proud of him. And then another gentleman who is another student of my mentorship forum, along with Eli, he's a businessman from the Netherlands who lives in Indonesia. His name's Eric Tan, sent me this. And then I want to share this with you. This is a message from a Netherlands business guy who lives in Jakarta, also an elite mentorship forum student of mine, amazing guy. Just got this. Hi, Peter. In these times of total chaos and turmoil, your teachings are starting to make even more sense of the world. I'm in a blessed situation that I've designed my life consciously to be able to work from anywhere and observe the craziness from my tower of higher awareness that you taught me to create. Looking down at all of the people who are being swayed into despair by mass media hysteria, I'm so grateful that you taught me a way to find my center, my core inner strength that cannot be swayed easily by all of these outside circumstances and other people's movies. I'm not denying there is a virus out there. There probably is one, and yes, it might reach me and my family at some point. The way you've taught me to take a higher perspective and ironically enough, go sit in the media helicopter, which is a technique that I teach in terms of how to separate oneself mentally from the issues that you're dealing with, is so useful at the moment to stay centered and calm. Only that position allows me to serve my community, my friends, my team, and my family. Only this higher perspective allows me to serve and lead instead of follow. I'm not sleeping awake, I'm awake. And the more I meditate in these times, the calmer I get. You have changed and will continue to change my life for the better, and I'm forever grateful for that. Eric Ten Hav, amazing guy. And I don't try to say this to impress you guys. I don't try to say this to say I'm great. This is not about me in any way, shape, or form. This is about showing you what is on offer. What is on offer for you right now? Because how do you take advantage of this situation? As I said earlier, there are going to be winners and losers out of this. And if you look at the term or the word crisis in Chinese, it's made up of 2 words, danger and opportunity. And so right now you have a choice, and it's a pretty simple choice. and that is to run around following the herd, or sit at home and complain about the current situation, or worry about what might or might not happen. Or you can think, oh, I've got 2 weeks off, I'll sit on my ass and with my thumb up my butt, my brain in neutral, and just watch everything unfold. Or you go binge on Netflix and basically veg out. Or you can choose to use your time wisely. That is what's on offer for you right now, guys. As the great Jim Rohn said, time is the coin of your life. Spend it wisely. And my invitation for you is to go out there when the entire world is slowing down and the entire world is in a fear-based, immunocompromised situation, and use this as an opportunity to focus on improving yourself and being a better you. If you give up Netflix, if you were to use this time right now to focus on how can you improve yourself, how can you learn this kind of techniques, how can you focus on being a better version of yourself, how can you come out of this stronger, fitter, better, start doubling down on investing this time that you may never get again in terms of the situation, you'll certainly never get again in terms of the actual time itself, and really go and be a better version of yourself. And I really encourage you. I've given you several books that I've recommended throughout this presentation that I encourage you to go read as well, just to arm yourself. And I've already told you to go out and look for your own truth. But I also want to give you some resources. And so I thought long and hard about what can I put together to be able to give you guys. Because if you're going to spend some time self-isolating, if you're going to spend some time in quarantine and what have you, and you've got access to the net, don't just turn on the TV, certainly don't turn on the media, right? Go start programming yourself with empowerment techniques. Go start learning something. You ever want to learn a musical instrument? Now's a great time to start. You want to learn a foreign language? Now's a great time to start. Or if you just want to generally achieve a level of self-mastery that 95% of the population are not demonstrating right now, then I've got some tools for you to do it. And here they are. You go to the website, petersage.co/suite. You can download everything there. This is thousands of pounds of some of my best stuff that I teach to my best students. Guys, again, I don't want a penny for this. This is my gift to you to be able to help you become better versions of yourself, which is what my mission is to be able to try to help people with. And it's petersage.co, not .com, because we're building a new website on .com right now. So I wanted to make sure that we weren't going to mess that around with uploading and downloading new stuff. So petersage.co/suite. On there, you've got the original London Real interview that I did way back in 2013 before Brian Rose, for whatever his own personal reasons, decided to take it down. And that's helped a tremendous amount of people in terms of mindset and self-empowerment. Tens of thousands of people, in fact. And so you can go have a look at that. In fact, it was that interview where I actually mentioned and introduced to Brian Rose Dan Pena, who then has been unleashed on social media. For those that are not know, Dan is definitely entertaining to watch. Been a mentor of mine for a quarter of a century. Interesting guy. But yeah, so you got the London Real interview there. You've got my straight talk on creating an empowering model of the world. You've got a video I put out 6 years ago on the media. You've got my juice recipes, my ginger shot. How to make a ginger shot in the morning to basically help boost immunity. That's something that I definitely recommend. Big shout out there to my good friend Jason Vale, the Juice Master. Again, if you want to spend time watching anything, go watch Super Juice Me on YouTube as an incredible free documentary that Jason put together. I've been over at the Juicy Oasis as his guest a couple of years ago. I love the guy to bits. He's doing so much to empower people with regards to health. And yeah, go watch that. And I challenge you not to change some of your eating habits towards a healthier lifestyle. And guess what else we have in there as well? Obviously, I've been plugging other people's books, but I want to plug my own because the Inside Track, the inspirational guide on handling adversity, is changing the lives of every single person that's read it. If you look at any online review, very proud of that book. And I know I'm getting messages every day from people who are thanking me the fact they read it because they're able to deal with this situation and levels of uncertainty now in ways they could never have done before. And guys, as I said, I don't want anything from you here. I'm giving you a copy of that book free, the ebook version in that suite. So please go read that. I could talk for hours on why that should be the first thing you dive into, but there's so much other good stuff in there as well. I'll just let you tune in and see what's best for you. But yeah, and there's a ton of other stuff in there, and I'll probably keep adding to it as well, guys. But again, just a gift from me. Please go use it. Remember, knowing and not doing is the same as not knowing. And I just want you guys to go out and empower yourself in this time so that we can all be better examples for each other, because what the world needs right now are more sane, level-headed leaders rather than, say, panicky sheep or headless chickens or people that are desperately searching for other people to help lead them out of this. And I don't think it's going to come from the politicians, certainly not historically. It's certainly not going to come from the media. It's going to come from people like you and I who are trying to be the best people that they can be to help other people. So, in summary, let's have a look. What have we covered? 1, check your facts. Please ask better questions. Again, even ask better questions about what I've been sharing with you. If you disagree with it, that's fine. That's what makes things happen. I'm cool with that. I don't need the good opinion of others to justify my own sense of self. And neither am I too attached to it not to be open to different information. But again, do your fact checking in a way that isn't buying into other people's agendas. Ask those questions I gave you earlier. Go read How to Lie with Statistics. It will arm you to be far less susceptible and gullible when it comes to taking on information. Fear is by far your biggest threat. Fear will compromise your immune system. Fear will make you unintelligent and make stupid decisions, which right now we don't want to be doing. And fear is, go to the classic Frank Herbert in Dune. Fear is the mind killer. The Literary of Fear, for those of you who read that book. Never a truer word said. You can easily improve your immune system with better thoughts, nutrition, exercise, and environment. Generally in that order, guys. So please make sure that you're setting yourself up to win here, not lose. The fastest cure, turn off the media. Did I mention turn off the media, by the way? I'm not sure if I'd pull up that thing at all. Yeah, don't listen to the media. Did I mention that? Yeah. Oh, by the way, don't listen to the media. Right, and I'm talking about mainstream media. There's some very good channels out there that don't have their agenda, which is eyes on for a commercial agenda and sensationalism and amygdala stimulation at heart. Be the example. Again, we don't know if we'll have this time again in human history to be able to step up and show our kids, our friends, our families and communities what it's like to be the voice of reason and calm when everybody else is desperately seeking for a role model to copy. And take advantage. Invest your time well. Guys, don't waste this opportunity. And it is an opportunity. I don't care if your business is falling through the floor. Everybody's affected by this. I don't care if you've got loved ones that are sick right now. Again, best thing you can do for them is to be an example of calm, a resource of love. Program them using the placebo to get better instead of worse. Don't support a victim level mentality here. You walk into someone who is sick and say, hey man, you're looking a lot better today. You'll see them perk up. You will see somebody who's not sick and tell them they look like shit. Guess what? You're going to affect them. So take responsibility for that. Okay. Alrighty guys, we're going to move into the questions and answers side. I'm actually going to stop the recording and actually restart it and post the Q&A as a separate one so we can use this as a separate thing. I just want to say thank you so much to everybody who has been on today's training. It's been absolutely incredible. Thank you so much to hundreds and hundreds of you that have shown up here, and hopefully the thousands that you'll be able to share this with if you care about somebody else, guys. And I'll put the Q&A, when I upload this, I'll do it separately as an audio file so people can actually listen to all of the Q&A that are coming. So I'm sure there's going to be some great information that comes out of that as well. Sorry for some of the technical challenges we had earlier as well. And all I want to say now, guys, is a huge thank you from my heart to yours. Please go out there, stay safe, stay sane, stay happy. And I'm sure we'll be looking back on this with some stories to tell the grandkids one day in a way that tell them how the world panicked when we were able to hopefully be the example, not the warning. I love you guys. I'll speak to you soon.